Hey y'all, it's your baby boomer Kitty Lane from the peninsula in Virginia. Welcome to Create and Relate. So earlier you saw me frogging the daylights out of that shawl. And I started recreating it. I'm sorry, I got a frog in my throat. Maybe from all that frogging. Anyway. But I started recreating the shawl as soon as I finished frogging it. And I went to sleep, which is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just that my body is so out of whack, it thinks that afternoon nap time is actually bedtime, which is another reason I don't post at the times that I want to, because I'm usually asleep. But being that it's still May 30th, I figured I'd jump on it, even though this may not be posted until May 31st. Still. But at any rate, I wanted to talk to you about victory and success. Your definition of victory, your success, may not look the same to me. My victory, my success may not look the same to you. I was saying earlier how I would give myself a list of these like major things that I want to do. And 9 times out of 10, I will not complete that list. When I give myself short lists, I am I kind of get that mentality at some point during the day. I don't have to do this right now. I can do this instead. And it's generally something that's not on the list. And I end up doing everything that's not on the list and nothing that's on the list. So when I go back at the end of the day and I recap my day, I feel like a failure. I'm not looking at the fact that, well, hey, instead of changing my room around, I got the cabinets reorganized in the kitchen. I sorted the kids' toys. I'm not looking at those things. I was able to do some things outside of the house that I normally wouldn't do. I see all of that and I'm aware, but because the structured side of me didn't complete the things that I had set aside for me to do, I feel like I I didn't do a good job and I get bummed out. Whereas when I make this list of 100 things that I need to do throughout the course of the day, and I'm exaggerating that number, I usually try not to make that number more than like maybe 30, 40 items, but I break things down into little things. That's another trick, but um, and then when I go back at the end of the day and I look at, well, hey, I got 20 of these items done. Not bad. You know, 67% definitely is a lot better than 0%. Um, I'm sorry. The part of the shawl that I started recreating, of course, I took it out. Um, it's that 5 start thing. Um, that's the OCD. At any rate, I wanted to talk about making realistic and unrealistic lists. Some people look at my list and they're like, oh my God. They look at the number on the list. I will go up to 50 things because tend to, I micro organize. So instead of saying dishes, I break it up into 2 things. Well, 3 things: wash dishes, dry dishes, put dishes away. So when I do all of that, instead of one thing being done then I've done three things. Um, Clearing the counter. We have an open concept kitchen, living room, dining room that's separated by a bar, the sink bar going off from the kitchen. So I break that bar up into, I'm sorry, I break the bar up into three sections. It's like the sink and the drying side, and then the other side is, I call it the presentation side, and then there's the end of the counter where we do our food prep. So instead of saying counter, I break it up into those three. That way, because most of the time I don't really get to the presentation side, to be completely honest with you, it's on the list, but I rarely am able to get to that side. And if it's not completed when I put it up there as a counter, I'm not going to check that item off the list. But if I break it up into dish counter, food prep counter, presentation counter, and I do the dish counter and the food prep counter, here again, 67% is done. And I don't feel so bad at the end of the day that I wasn't able to go through the sauce bowl. Yeah, we collect sauces from restaurants. So that when we cook food at home, we'll be like, this Chick-fil-A Polynesian sauce will go good with these fish. Or whatever the case may be. Honey mustard, barbecue sauce, Polynesian sauce, Chick-fil-A sauce. There are a few others that kind of stay in our bowl. Duck sauce. Yeah, duck sauces. Duck sauce is good with rice. Duck sauce is excellent with like regular dried rice and fried chicken. It is. Um, I'm a rice person. My grandfather was a Geechee. We had rice with every meal. I used to sit on my granddaddy's lap and he would feed me. We had rice and peas, rice and string beans, rice, and it was rice and. It was always rice and. And I grew up loving rice in that way, to the point that I will just eat rice and butter. That could be a whole meal for me, and I'm satisfied. But the duck sauce, it's like just enough to give it that moisture and a little twang of sweet at the same time. It's so good. It's really good. But anyway, that's my recipe tip for you today. At any rate, like I said, if you break these big projects down, one being like change my room around, I know that in my heart, in my mind, I could do this all in one day. Realistically, with my health, if I were to try to do it all in one day, I'd be back in the hospital. So I break it down to remove bed rails from behind the bed, clear the coffee table, or I don't know what you call the end table. Clear the end table, clean the end table, place the end table in the bathroom. Move bookcase to the end of bed, push bed over. And when I look at that list of like 6 or 7 items to do a restock bookcase, because like for instance, where the bookcase was sitting, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shelves tall. I was only able to use 2 shelves and the very top where it was sitting behind the bed. So moving it down to the end of the bed, I'm able to utilize all shelves. The things that were on the end table that was sitting at the foot of the bed, everything that was on the bottom shelf was stuff that I didn't need. I had subscribed to some weight loss system which I did not confer with my doctor before I got it. I mean, hell, the kit was like $10. Um, and I got all this fabulous stuff along with it, and nobody I know uses it. No. So after sitting there for like 6 months or so, I got rid of it. My nebulizer was sitting over there in that corner. It was time for the tubing to be changed. I threw the old tubing away. Um, the device that checks my pacemaker defibrillator it was sitting in the windowsill actually. I have a deep windowsill, and there's a ledge that I usually try to put items so that when I open my blinds, it's appealing in case people can see from the outside. I don't want just random stuff sitting up there. But the phone kind of laid flat, and you really couldn't see it from the outside anyway, but it kind of helped me to even out both sides, so things, you know, something totally different. Anyway, I was able to get the phone over on the shelf, and I was able to put my medications there so I could readily reach them. I keep my meds in the tote, except those that I take on a daily basis. My doctor keeps me in the overstock on my meds, especially like my inhalers and the tubing for my nebulizer, those types of things. But the bottles that I take every day, sitting right by my side. Easy access. So I know that the next project is wash clothes, dry clothes, fold clothes, put away clothes. It's only a load, so it would be 4 items instead of 8. If it were 2 loads, I'd break it down to 2 loads. I would say wash clothes, dry clothes, fold clothes, put away clothes. Wash clothes, dry clothes. I would do it that way. That way, if I only got to, say, wash, dry, and fold 1 load, and I just had, everybody's individual stacks, so I hadn't really put anything away, then I've done 3 out of those 8 items instead of feeling like I had not done anything. If I just say wash clothes, then 3 out of 5 is better than 0. So, yeah. Yeah. I know the next thing I have to do is turn my yarn yarn storage bookcase around, push my other 3 cabinets down, and move my chair down towards the door. I know that's, but before I do that, I gotta get the clothes washed. I at least have to get them in the washing machine. So, that'll be another list of items that I have to take care of. I took care of 1 item today when I first woke up. I had a 4x4x4 storage bag that I got from Temu, that I had sitting in the coat closet, full of yarn, full of whips that I knew were, the yarn was going to be repurposed. And lo and behold, I'm so happy I went through it, because I found a blanket that I did not want to repurpose. I wanted to hold on to that blanket. Y'all forgive me, I just had a thought. I'm missing something, and I need to find it, but I'll try to keep that up here in my mind so that I know to look for it. But at any rate, I'm glad that I was able to find that blanket, because it will probably be the first piece that I've made that I actually call mine. And it's a simple virus blanket. Isn't it pretty? Isn't it so pretty? Oh. But it goes from like the soft colors to the hard colors. I'm not really a blanket person, but the reason I wanted to keep this is because it's the first blanket that I made when we moved here in 2020. We moved December 30th of 2020. So it was the first blanket actually made of 2021. Um, and the reason I pack everything with Downy dry sheets. So, and I wash with Gain. So they smell so good. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is love. This is literally my I love myself blanket. Oh my God. I actually teared up. Oh Lord, have mercy. This feels so good right now, y'all. I am actually emotional. I don't know if it's the blanket and the feeling that it gives, or the fact that I don't say too often I love myself unless I'm defending myself. And this was truly a just random I love myself moment. Wow. Oh my goodness. That was unexpected. Okay. But yeah, um, I made it through a really, really, really tough year in 2021. That was a scary year. But I am so grateful to be here now. I am. And with that being said, as I said before, this particular shawl that I chose to go with is not my creation. It's so you can see how awkward I crochet. Oh, I butcher. I butcher yarn and projects and the way that I hold them. The lady that taught me, it used to aggravate her so much. She was like, "Look, you can't be a tomboy with this." And in my mind, I'm like, "And why not?" If it's supposed to be strong and durable, then it needs to hold on for the ride. And it's just something I never changed. Uh, Getting off today's topic and getting on something that I think is very important. Um, when teaching crochet, I have run across a few people who have tried learning from others face to face. And the one thing they say is, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Let me hold my yarn just right. They told me to do this and do that, and I gotta hold my needle like this. So the main focus for them, instead of enjoying the process, is holding the yarn and the hook right. Even though I didn't do things the way Miss Lena wanted me to do things, she never inhibited that part of my process. She let me do what was comfortable for me, and I appreciate her for that, because even though I see that some other people um, hold their yarn just like I do, it's never the same combination. I don't see anyone. I don't see any two people using and looking at YouTube. I don't see any two people using the same skill set or the same process. For instance, I've seen several ways to make clean edges. and then playing around with it. It's like my next row will be a double crochet row. I don't chain and turn. Um, this is, like I said, Crystal's design. And at the beginning of each row with hers, you chain 5. And that counts as a double crochet and 2 chains. Me, once I complete this row, I simply turn my work. I go back into that first stitch and make a single crochet. Go into the bottom of that single crochet, and I call it build a double crochet. So that becomes my double crochet. And then I chain 2. So that counts as those 5 stitches for me. It makes it easier for me. And my ends just look, they are amazingly straight. See? So that works for me. When I branch out and get myself in a better situation and am able to afford a camera that's behind me, and more space in my room, then I will show that process. Show and share, share and show. But yeah, back to victory and success. When you make your list of achievements, your list of goals, when you succeed at something that you've been working on, or you get something that works out for you, don't let anybody steal your joy. Don't let anybody take that victory away from you. Um, the people on the outside, I heard a comment the other day where a gentleman was literally watching the way um, a woman was walking, and he determined just by her walk that she was lazy. And I don't know to what extent that was meant. This was eavesdropping on somebody else's conversation. But you don't know that woman's situation. Her victory may have been simply in putting her feet on the floor and standing up. I reference that to myself because I know that I have great difficulty walking distances. I live in an apartment complex, and my apartment complex is right next door to Walmart. Literally, only the side parking lot of Walmart separate my portion of my building from Walmart. And 10 years ago, hell, 5 years ago, I almost would have been able to jog over there. But to leave my apartment complex, number one, I have to walk all the way down to the end of my row of buildings and then exit the property and walk all the way back down. In doing that alone, I have almost doubled the distance from my door to Walmart's front door. And sometimes my daughter will get out and walk with me, and I'm able, without assistance, to walk down to the end of the sidewalk, but then I have to stop and rest. My heart is beating like really, really fast, and I'm finding it hard to breathe, and then it's like I want to turn around and go home. One thing I'm learning in trying to increase my distance is to not go until I get tired. Pick a spot, go halfway to that distance, and turn around and come back. And the next day, go 10 steps further, or 20 steps further, or whatever, just increase it a little day by day so that I can get to one of my ultimate goals is like by the end of June to be able to go from my building all the way to the outside and back around to the back side of my building and turn around and come back home. By the end of the year, I want to be able to make my way comfortably over to Walmart and at least to the produce section and have the energy to make it back home, being that the produce section is right there in the front door. It sounds menial to those people who can do that in the snap. I don't do a lot of external shopping because of the fact that I can't. If I can't access places with my scooter, then I tend not to go. And yeah, yeah. If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd be in the situation I'm in right now, I'd have scoffed. What do you mean? I'm gonna be like this forever. And it hasn't worked out that way for me. So, um, it with that in mind, I've learned not to. Well, I never have been the judgmental type, but I've learned to silently critique other people's judging. It puts me in a mind. Usually, I would hear somebody make a comment like that, and I'd chuckle and keep it moving. I really wouldn't give it a thought. But like I said, being in this situation, it forces me to think, well, maybe the fact that she was you don't know what these people, you don't know what the next person is facing. It may be a struggle for her to leave her apartment. There are people like that. I forgot what that phobia is called, but you can't judge other people based on what you can do or how you think they look or how you think they should feel. Based on, a lot of people don't realize or believe that I'm 60. And when I go somewhere and utilize my senior citizen perks, sometimes I will get ID'd as well. People are like, oh, you have to be 60 or you have to be 55 to do this. And I pull my ID and show them. They're like, oh my God, I thought you were like 35, 40 years old. I'm like, okay, that's a stretch. But my daughter tells me every day, Mom, you don't look a day over 36. And I'm like, this is why I love you. Ooh, this is why I love you, because you love me. Yeah. But yeah. Another thing to add along with the success and victories, when you achieve something, don't let it stop there. Because we as a society tend to get complacent in victories. And we don't push beyond that. Don't over push yourself, but always know that there is something bigger and something greater. I have said it before, I'm never satisfied. I think that when I'm satisfied, that's when I'll expel my last breath, because there's always more. There's always something bigger, always something greater, and to reach for that is just amazing. It's amazing what we can do simply by trying. God, it is so amazing. We just put one foot in front of the other. We can accomplish some things. We just have to try. And I know I'm saying a lot, and it's become a really bad habit here lately. It's almost midnight, y'all. And my bed is saying, come on in the room. But my body is saying, I'm not ready. So, in case y'all haven't picked up, I love to sing. Love to sing. Been singing all my life. It started with the same lady that taught me to crochet, bless her heart. Miss Lena Drumgold. I wish she was still here. The first song that she actually taught me to sing was How Great Thou Art. And Not only did she crochet, she was a seamstress as well. And I don't know how many of you may remember these, but I called them popcorn rain hats. Miss Lena used to make, like, I would say 10 to 15 of those in a day. Now, mind you, this woman would get up before the break of dawn and cook her husband and their roommate breakfast. Mr. Benny was their roommate. And we call him Uncle Larry, which was Miss Lena's husband, Larry Drumgold. But Uncle Larry and Mr. Benny, Mr. Benny kind of took to me. I became his grandchild, and he was like my guardian angel. When it was time for me to catch the bus or go to school, he would drive up to where the crossing guard was, where we crossed the main street, and he'd sit there to make sure I got across the street okay. In the afternoons when I came home from school, he would sit there and make sure I was coming back okay. I was bullied a lot, and I don't know if he knew it, but the actual bullying would happen. There was a small patch of woods that, in the little path, that all of us kids would come through, and most of it would happen there, or would happen very close to the school. And bullying back then was just seen as kids being rough with kids, so a lot of it was permitted, unseen, unhandled, and a lot of it tended to leave some really deep emotional scars. But Miss Lena would get up before the break of dawn, fix breakfast for these guys, and take her husband to work. They had one car. She would take her husband to work. Mr. Benny had his own car. But when she got back home, then she would start preparing breakfast for my arrival before going to school. Then she would feed me breakfast when I got there and send me off. I don't know what she did while I was at school, but when I would get home from school around 3:15 in the afternoon, we together, I had to go wash my hands, go use the bathroom and wash my hands. And they had hunting dogs. They had 5 hunting dogs, 2 dogs that stayed in the house, and 2 chihuahuas stayed in the house, Billy and Chili. But the 5 dogs outside, they each had their own pen, and these pens led up to a barn. Sometimes they would rescue animals, so the very front pen, which you walked in, the very front pen to the left, was pretty much empty unless they had a rescue dog in there. And that was generally a dog in the neighborhood that had been hurt. But these other 5 dogs, we have to go out, feed and water them. We would empty, they got fed twice a day. So I do know in the morning she would feed them, and then when I got in the afternoon, I would feed them again. And it was a small portion in the morning, usually what she called morsels, that she prepared herself. And then it was the kibbles, dog food, in the evening. I would do the kibbles and the water, empty the water containers, empty the food containers, rinse them out. We had our little waste towels that we tried around us. If you from Disciples of Christ, the Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ Church, then you know about the towel tied around the waist when we do the foot washing. But anyway, we tie that towel around our waist, and when we did the food, because we don't want the food to get wet, we would dry the container out really well. They had little shelters that they would put their food in. Everything was built by Uncle Larry and Miss Lena. They had a summer house on the beach in North Carolina, down on the Outer Banks. And it was like an amusement park, a little mini amusement park. All kinds of board games, like you would see in a carnival or a festival or a fair, to throw the darts at the balloon, the ring toss, pin the tail, or all of these games, all of these woodboard games, Uncle Larry built by hand. And Miss Lena would do the painting and designing. So when something got old or broken, she would let me help her with that as well. So back to the dog pens, their little shelters for their food, and the dog houses First of all, their pens were covered. They would have the back halves were covered in tarp, and it was secured to the ground. So that when we live in an area where we always get hurricanes and windstorms, but the tarp was secured, and the dog houses were up under the tarp. There was a rolling feature, a rollaway feature, so that if it became too bad, we could roll the tarps all the way down over the front and secure them to the stakes, so that the dogs would be safe and we didn't have to worry about moving them. These people were geniuses, okay? I'm trying to tell you. The pens were big enough that Miss Lena could walk into them, and she was tall for a woman. She was like 5'11", 6 feet. So you could open the door and walk comfortably in the pen. Mind you, I'm like 5, 6 years old. So these pens look huge to me. But, in retrospect, they were comfortable enough size that an adult could walk in and care for the animal without feeling cramped up. So the dogs had plenty of space. They had plenty of space. They could run around their pens. I mean, yes, amazing. Now that I think about it, growing up in it and doing it, it just became a part of life. But sitting back and actually thinking about it, it's like, man, that was amazing. At the end of the row, we had the 5 dogs, and at the end of the row was the barn. That's where Uncle Larry kept like his lawnmower, whatever tools that he had. It was like his woodworking shop. And yeah, now just before you got into the pen, she had a little sitting garden on each side. Before the sitting garden on the right, she had a screened in tent. So when she would have like her Pequeno meetings or Spades meetings, and she was also the president of her chapter of the garden club or whatever she had going on, if they wanted to do an outdoor thing, he had it rigged up with lights so they could do it at night and didn't have to be bugged by the mosquitoes, or during the daytime where they had the screen and they didn't have to get too much sun, they could see their cards or whatever. Yeah, you could go in that tent and do that. Usually when I played outside, that's where I would go. Her regular backyard right outside her back door contained, of course, her clothesline and her little storage shed out the back. I didn't see it then as... I didn't really pay attention to the size of it. It was what it was. I knew it was bigger than what we had because we stayed in a duplex downstairs, and when you went out of our back door, you were on the driveway. And behind our house, we had a big enough space to build a pen for my dog, which was a German Shepherd named Rex. That was my baby. But we had a big enough space for Rex to have a 12 by 12 enclosure, and Uncle Larry came around and built the roof and the tarp for the top of his as well. But the driveway went all the way back to the back side of the pen, and then on the other side of the driveway, I guess as an adult, if I would lay down, would probably be... I know it would be a little over my head still. I get it. I'm short. But it was probably about a 6-foot strip of grass with a pine tree at the very front. Some other strange trees down at the back. But yeah, and we didn't have a front yard. Once you came down off the steps leading up into the house, you would at the sidewalk. So we didn't have a yard. When we went home to Carolina, now that was something different. Back home in Carolina, we had a front yard that didn't have one blade of grass. We would sweep the front yard like you would sweep a front porch. Yes. And the backyard, we lived on a corner where the sidewalk would be. Right on the corner was this huge tree that had like, okay, it at the bottom of the tree trunk, I guess, they had this bottom plank that was open where the root would grow, and the middle of that was just the bare sand, like the yard. And then it went up and over. It plateaued up and well, it rose up and plateaued over like a seat. So I always called that tree my throne. And every day that I'd go outside and play, I would go sit on my throne. That it was where I developed my love for trees, and I always felt one with that tree. I didn't need other people to play with or anything. Being an only child, I learned to do a lot by myself. I used to make, if you rub that dirt long enough, you could make a sand pile. It was nothing but packed dirt. So I go outside with my little, I don't even, flower watering tin. Yes. I'd go outside with that full of water, and I'd wet me an area, and I'd scrape up some mud. And like I said, I was a tomboy. Don't judge me. But I was baking my apple pies, my cherry pies, and my blueberry pies. Now, how they got their names? If it was just the plain mud pie, it was an apple pie. If it had the black ants, we had the big ants. We had the big army ants. If it had the black ants, it was a blueberry pie. And if it had the red ants, it was a cherry pie. Yeah, yeah. And to show you how adventurous and crazy I was, like I said, we live in an area, we live in a region where there is a lot of harsh weather activity. Nothing, we don't see too many tornadoes, but we do see a lot of hurricanes and a lot of flooding, a lot of torrential rainfalls, high winds. We're very, very, very close to the Atlantic Ocean. And even though Wilson, North Carolina is a little more inland, we had a lot of flooding there, especially on the corner where we were, because we lived at the bottom of the hills coming from around us. It's like you had Green Street. Well, Green Street went up a little bit as you were going towards Darden High School. And then it dipped down and it went back up as you went towards, we lived at the quarter of Green, the next street over. I don't remember the name of that street. I want to say Vance, but for some reason I'm thinking maybe it wasn't Vance right now, but for right now we're going to say Vance. So when you got to Vance Street, it went up again. We were at the corner of Green and Reed, which was like right in the middle. Coming down from Viola, which was right behind us, was downhill. That's where I learned to ride bikes. And then as you went further down Reed Street, it leveled out. So when the rain would come, it's like it would come to this part and then it would shoot down Reed Street. And it would flood. And me being short already, I used to go out in my bathing suit and play in the floodwaters. We had no idea. And plus, we had no idea how dangerous that was then, number one. But number two, times were different. Times were so different. They really, 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 really were. I look at the fact that when it was summertime, it didn't matter. We had to go outside. You're not, no, playing in the house? How you think the house would stay clean? Well, because we did it. Because we were outside. And when you came in the house, first thing you do was go to the bathroom and strip and take a bath. Yes. You're not spreading that dirt all over the house. Walk in the door, you take off your shoes. You're not tracking mud all over my freshly mopped floor. And my grandmother was very sweet. She very seldom raised her voice. One thing that a lot of the outside world didn't know is behind closed doors, she cussed like a sailor. Where I learned a lot of my flavorful vocabulary from. Yes, but my grandmother was very much a lady. She was very, very, very much a lady. And, you know, you walk in the house and she'd be in the kitchen and it's thundering outside, y'all. Like I said, we get this weather. But she'd be sitting in the kitchen and she would hear the front door open and she very silently, but you could hear her say, "Take off your shoes." And she wouldn't go above that. I'm like, this woman is amazing. You know, she can rule the world with that tone of voice. I want to be like her when I grow up. I'm still trying, y'all. I'm still trying. Whew. Okay, but Miss Lena, back to Miss Lena and what she would do. When I came in from school, like I said, we would get the dogs fed and everything. And if she had clothes on the line, we would take the clothes in and fold the clothes right then and put the clothes away. And then whatever we had to do crochet was, mind you, all of this was done no later than 3:45. We weren't rushing. Everything was just, it was so systematic. So between 3:45 and 4 o'clock, we were rolling skeins of yarn into balls, manually rolling them into balls. And she would hold them on her hands like this, you know, and not stand there and not roll the ball. And then we'd sit down to crochet from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And she's already done all of her food preps for the day. She's already cooked breakfast for Uncle Larry and Mr. Benny, cooked breakfast for me, packed Uncle Larry's lunch, fed Mr. Benny lunch, had a snack ready for me when I got in. It was usually a grab and go snack, so it was, you know, something simple like a boiled egg or maybe a hot dog or a bologna sandwich, something really, really quick. And then at 5 o'clock, it was time for her to go start dinner because at 6 o'clock, we were sitting down to eat dinner. And we would look at Daniel Boone and Gentle Ben, the three shows, the other one, Gilligan's Island. Those were our three shows that we would sit and look at. We would also have dinner conversation, which is where I learned to eat really slow because you had to chew each mouthful of food at least 28 times. There was no. No. No, 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 no. Food goes in mouth, you chew at least 28 times, and then you swallow. No getting around it. She'd sit there and count the number of times I chewed. And then after that, it was clearing the table, cleaning the table, washing, drying, and putting away the dishes. Good old days. By that time, it was usually Mom coming to pick me up, but if it was a late night for my mom, then that's when the crocheting and stuff would get done. That was her crochet time. But times that I had to spend the night with Miss Lena, when it started becoming rainy season, and she would make these popcorn rain hats. She would cut her material, lay out her plastic, because it was covered in plastic. The material was covered in plastic. And she'd get her elastic. Excuse me, please. She would get her elastic and her sewing needle and thread. And she did it by hand. She would sew these hats together. And the longest part of that process was cutting the material. Everything else went by so fast. I never learned to make those popcorn hats. I know how she did it. And I'm pretty sure if I sat down right now and really tried, I could probably do it. But I do remember that she'd cut the material in a circle. And she'd have this big square sheet of plastic. And she would sew the plastic onto the material all the way around the edge. And then she would put the elastic, depending on how long you wanted the brim, but I would say at least 2 inches in the fabric and just sew all the way around. She never marked anything. I guess because she had done it for so long that she didn't have to mark anything. I could see me now. I'd be sitting there with ruler and everything. No, 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 no. I don't measure stuff. I'm sorry. I saw how I just did this and said 2 inches or so. Yeah, that's probably the extent. Well, I can't say that. I'm starting to try to better my habits when it comes to crocheting because of the fact that I've been doing it so long. I wing a lot of things, and I always think. Please excuse me. I always think there's room for improvement. I know that as long as I'm on the face of this earth, there's room within me for improvement. And you about to see exactly why I'm not a blanket person. I love you. But yeah. So ooh. And I want to give a shout out to Kiera. Oh my God. You are the best. You are the greatest. You really are. And I want you to know that always. That comes from a happy place. It comes from a good place. Um, yeah. You're the best. I'm not saying anybody else isn't, but there's just, she knows. And I thank you. I do. But yeah, I forgot what I was saying once I took the "I Love Me" blanket off. It's very warm. It's very warm. Like I said, I'm when Miss Lynn started teaching me to crochet, she worked with me with medium for worsted weight, and in I'm sorry, the very first project I made was a granny square poncho and a granny square worked into a tam hat. It was green and white. My mom taught at Forest Glen High School, and their colors were green and white. So when I went to sporting events and stuff, like the football games especially, and the softball games on cool nights, then I was able to wear my poncho and my hat. But yeah, or when we had parades, because we used to have a lot of parades, which was the reason I became a member of the marching band. Oh my God, that was so exciting. I got to march in the band as a cheerleader, and I also got to march in the band as a flute player and a tenor sax player. Yes. Put one of them instruments up to my lips now, and it's like, sorry, I have a flute. I do have a flute, and I do not utilize it like I should, and I need to pull it down and work with that. But anyway, self betterment, along with celebrating your victories and successes, always know that there's room for improvement. There's always room to do better, to be greater. This world needs love, for one. They need a huge dose of happiness and joy and non-judgmental attitudes. I mean, seriously, coming from good places. We can't continue to afford the negativity that we're living. I mean, I look at it, part of the reason I stay inside, and part of the reason I attribute to my rapid medical decline, no health decline, is because I've no desire to go out and mingle. And it's not my health that keeps me from doing it so much. It's the lack of love in people. People are cruel. And I don't understand for the life of me why it is so necessary for people to feel like they have to be so darn evil. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I won't pretend to understand it or agree with it, because, excuse me, we were designed to have and to be companions. And in that fact alone means we should get along. Or at least accept the fact that even though we don't get along, we have to coexist. You know, I just realized that this light has not been in the right place. Hey, y'all. I don't know if I'm happy with this light being here, because now you can actually see me blush. But yes, we have been here now for approximately 56 minutes. I have become very committed to this. And I'm not saying that I'm going to be posting 2 times a day every day. That's not going to happen. It may happen, but typically it's not going to happen, because as I grow, I want the structure of this to grow as well. And my thing is just sharing, creating, and relating. Yeah, I just want to drop happy droplets on everybody. And I want everyone today to just understand, realize, and take away from this that your victories and your successes are your successes and your victories. My victories and my successes are my successes and my victories. They may not look the same, but none is any less important than the other. And as soon as we can come to terms with that, then we can put one more nugget in our love fire and continue to spread and share it to each other. I want each of you to have a wonderful, exciting, it is now morning here, but day, afternoon, night, whenever you choose to watch this. And please, 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 don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Please, please, please. As we say in the grave shift community, yes. As we say in the graveyard shift community, I must be sleepy. I got a little life left. Love, love, love. Until we meet again, peace out, and I love you.